going to need a Pilates ball or a block could work, and something that you can use to wrap around your thighs. So I've got a stretchy band here. You could also use a buckled strap or even a bathrobe tie. So we're going to be focusing on some support for the low back and really tuning into basic movement patterns. Okay, so first things first, we're going to come down onto our backs. And while you're on your back, just start to let your body settle down into the floor. So letting go of just a little bit of effort to hold yourself up and away from the floor. And you can just start to notice the sensations in your body. And if you can, try to let those sensations come and go. So we're trying not to attach too much meaning to the sensations. Kind of thinking about as if you were watching clouds pass by in the sky. So not really assigning too much meaning to them. You might notice that those clouds look like certain shapes. And then you're paying attention to the next one. So paying attention to the sensations. Good, and then you'll shift your awareness to start to tune into your breath. And again here, not trying to change the breath. You're just noticing, where do you feel a little bit of movement from your breath? Okay, and then for our first movement, you're going to bring your index finger and your middle finger to the front of your hip flexor. So right where you feel like a ropier part of your body, or like a crease in your hip, that's where your hip flexor lives. And you're just going to slowly start to lift one leg up. And as you lift that leg up, feel how that hip flexor muscle engages. That's where you'll feel more of a rope-like muscle engage. And you'll just play with that on one side a few times, lifting and lowering. As you lift and lower, can you keep the rest of your pelvis quite still? So the pelvis isn't tipping or twisting. And you may need to start even a little bit smaller here. So you may just want to play around with taking weight out of that leg. So maybe the heel lifts so that your pelvis can stay still. Or maybe once the heel's lifted, then you find a little lift through the rest of the leg. And just check in. Notice what's going on with your upper body. Can there be ease through your neck, your jaw, and shoulders? We'll do a few more on this side before we switch. So the goal here is not necessarily to get the leg to lift, but the goal is to keep the pelvis really relaxed, the upper body really relaxed, and to feel some work in those hip flexor muscles. Good, and then we'll start to switch over to the other side, letting the pelvis just melt down into the ground. Weight comes out of the left leg. You might feel some more weight into the right leg. And then you'll lift and lower. Again, feeling in where your hip flexor is, that ropey-like muscle. You should feel it engage as the leg lifts. Notice your breathing here. Is it easy? Is it constricted? What other sensations are you noticing through your body? Couple more on this side. Really trying not to like push your pelvis or lock your pelvis into the ground. Sometimes here when I ask people to keep their pelvis still, they kind of brace and lock and engage their core and do all these things to try to keep the pelvis still. And that's not what I'm looking for here. What I'm looking for here is that You're only lifting the leg as high as you can while the pelvis stays still. Good. Maybe one more here. And then lower. And then we're going to alternate right to left. So you'll pick up your right leg and lower. Keep that pelvis still. Pick up the left leg and then lower. Whole upper body is melting into the ground. You might move a little slower than I am to find that. Your foot might not completely come off of the ground, so it might just be that the heels are lifting. You might feel a little bit of responsiveness through the abdomen, but it's not a bracing through the abdomen. There's a difference there. Let's do one more each side. Great work. Okay, and then you're going to find your ball. The ball is going to go high up between your thighs. I'll turn so you can see where that is. So quite high up on the thighs. And you're going to, again, have your hands at those hip creases. So where we felt the ropey muscle before, your hip flexors, we're going to keep our hands there. You're going to start to squeeze into the ball. And then you're going to release. Squeeze into the ball. And then release. And what I want you to feel for here is that as you squeeze and release, those hip flexors this time, they are not firing. So we don't want to feel that ropey muscle at the front of the hips. Instead, we shouldn't feel any movement happening underneath of our hands. So that might mean that the squeeze in needs to be a little bit smaller. That's okay. We're trying to get the right muscles to do the job. Breath is nice and easy. Rest of the body is nice and easy. Good. We're going to hold the squeeze. So you're going to come in and you're going to just hold that for about 5 seconds. Easy breath. Still no change in those hip flexors. And you might be surprised at how small this movement has to be at first. It will get bigger, I promise. We're looking for quality over quantity. So we want to train the right muscles to do the right jobs. And then we'll build strength. Okay, you can go ahead and release that. Let's do one more like that with that longer hold. So squeezing into the ball. Thinking about the squeeze coming from your inner thighs. Sometimes people try to do this from their knees. So just be mindful that it's coming from inner thighs. Breath is easy. And release. Nice work. You're going to find your stretchy band. You're going to wrap that around your upper thighs. And we will actually leave the ball in place, but we're going to kind of work on the opposite now. So we're going to work on pressing out into that band. The ball can just stay. So same thing. Feel those hip flexors. As you press out into the band, those hip flexors are quiet. And as your legs come back to center, those hip flexors are still quiet. So pressing out and releasing. You will likely feel a little bit of engagement through your glute muscles. Shoulders are easy, breath is easy. And we'll go ahead again and press out and hold. About 5 seconds. Let there be some ease on that hold. So the neck doesn't have to tense up, the low back doesn't tense up. Easy, easy breathing. And release. We'll do that again. Press out and hold. And release. Okay, good. We're going to keep the ball and the band, and now we're going to move into some glute bridges. So you're thinking about the lift coming from your butt muscles, but a lot of times people will squeeze their butt and then lift their hips, and I don't want you to do that, okay? So what I want you to think about is your butt being responsive to the lift of your hips. So you're just going to start to lift the hips. The bum is going to engage, and then you're going to lower the hips. And we'll just play with a few like that, lifting and lowering. I often have my hands here on the front of my hip and the bottom of my ribs because there's this really nice relationship between those two parts. Trying to get my hips and my ribs to move together instead of one going faster than the other. The feet are just resting on the floor. So you want to feel the balls of your feet, base of your pinky toe, middle of the heel as the hips lift and lower. Feeling that relationship of as the hips lift, the ribs lift. And then as the hips lower, the ribs lower. There's a relationship here, and I love bridge pose for this relationship between the upper body and the lower body. Really being mindful that you're not feeling this in your low back. You want to feel the work through the bum. We'll do a couple more. And I like having the ball and the band here. It gives my pelvis a little bit more stability. Okay, next time we come up, let's hold the lift. Noticing what's going on through the upper back. And release. Let's do two more like that. Lifting and holding. And release. One more nice easy breath. Lift up and hold. And release. When you're ready, you can remove the band and the ball, and it might feel good to let your legs go long for a second. Just kind of notice what has shifted for you. What are you now aware of? So for me, my legs feel a lot more grounded. My back feels a little bit looser. My breath feels a little bit easier. Okay, from here we're going to come on to our bellies. And you can start with your hands wherever. I like to start with my hands crossed, and then I rest my forehead down just for a few breaths. And I'm thinking about my pelvis, so my hip bones, melting down into the floor. So if I take my fingers, my index and my middle finger, and I try to poke where my hip bone is, in a perfect world, I don't want to be able to slide my fingers underneath. I want to be stopped by that bone. And I can feel right now I cannot slide my fingers under, which is great. If you find that no matter what you do, you can still get your fingers underneath, you may want to take a blanket and fold it up and place it underneath of your hips. Okay, we're going to come back down. And just connect with the breath here. Feel the breath into your belly, into your back, into the sides of your waist. And we're going to play with two different variations here.
So for the first variation, we're going to hover our toes. And then for the second variation, we're going to lift our upper body. So we'll start with just lifting the right leg. The whole right leg lifts. I'm thinking about that lift coming from where my thigh bone meets my pelvis. So the femur bone is moving back into extension. And then I'm going to let that leg lower. And I'm going to switch to the other side, lift. Thinking about extension coming from the femur bone moving back in the hip socket. And then I'm letting that soften. You can just keep alternating. Being aware of what's going on through my pelvis, or your pelvis. So it's not tipping or twisting or shifting. And the upper body is pretty relaxed here. You can keep alternating right to left. We'll hold the next one. We'll hold the right leg up for about 5 seconds. Easy, easy breath. It's not about the height. You don't want to feel this in your low back at all. If you do, lower that leg. And lower it all the way down. And we'll switch to the left. Hold for about 5 seconds. And gently release. And then we'll try both legs together. Pelvis is dropping down into the mat. Legs are lifting. Not feeling this in the low back. If you do, lower those legs a little. And release. Let's try 2 more like that. Legs lift. You can see I'm not lifting that high. Pretty small movement. If I go further, I start to feel it in my low back, and I don't want to feel it there, so I'm not going to lift too high. And release. 1 more. And release. After this one, it might feel good to take 1 ear to rest. It might feel good to bend your knees and let your legs rock a couple times. We'll play with 1 more through the upper body. So same setup, legs are long. Your hips, you want to have them melting down to the ground. This time we're going to take the hands just either side of the shoulders, gaze is down, and we're going to think about lifting from the bottom of our spine first. So right where your tailbone is, and you're going to visualize that you're lifting 1 vertebra at a time, bone by bone by bone, until your head can just hover a little off the mat. So same thing, I don't want to feel this as like a pinching in my back. If I do, just come down out of it a little. Hands are relatively light. Could play with hovering them. And then you're going to think about lowering from the bottom of your spine all the way until you bring the forehead down. When the forehead lands, we'll just go again. Feeling your pelvis melt into the ground. Visualizing like a ladder, climbing 1 vertebra at a time until chest and gaze lift. Maybe fingers hover, maybe they stay on the ground. Easy breath even here. And release. 1 more time. And release. From here, it might feel good to, again, bring 1 ear to rest. Might feel good to bend the knees, let them rock. My body is actually asking for a child's pose, so I'm going to come into child's pose. Just taking whatever movement feels nurturing and supportive for you. And then we'll end this practice the way that we started. So let's come back onto our backs. You could have your legs out long if that's comfortable. You could have your knees bent. I'm going to keep my knees bent. And you're letting go a little bit of effort to hold yourself up. Letting your body melt into the ground.
And just again, noticing the sensations in your body. Maybe comparing to how you felt at the start of your practice to now. What's showing up for you now? What has changed or what has been brought into your awareness? And you're challenging yourself a little bit here to notice without judgment. So just like if you were watching clouds pass by in the sky, noticing the sensations without too much attachment to their meaning or whether they're good or bad. Noticing how the breath might have changed from the beginning of your practice till now. And I always like to end my practice with just a little bit of gratitude. If it's comfortable, maybe you bring your hands onto your body, maybe one on your heart, one on your belly, or both on your belly. And just take a moment here to thank your body. Thank your body for all the ways it shows up for you, for all the ways it tries its best to support you and to keep you safe, for all the ways it carries you through your day. Thank you, body. You're welcome to stay a little bit longer in stillness. My voice is going to trail off, sending you love for wherever you're journeying to next. Thank you.